Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I am Richard Carlton, creator of fmtraining.tv. And Margaret, any second, is going to stop sharing her screen, and we're going to share this screen. Okay, that's cool. We can do that one. So every day we're doing a great FileMaker Training at this time slot. If you go to fmtraining.tv, you can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. Today, we're having some fun with the sorting hat. That's the Harry Potter sorting hat. We're going to be talking about sorts at a basic level, but then also much more advanced in terms of kind of what to expect. And it's an interesting conversation. If you want to support the channel real quick, as a reminder, we have a basic bundle, a plus bundle, and a complete bundle. We greatly appreciate all of you who purchase this. We see your names. I know who you are. Every one of you who does this earns a very warm spot in my heart for you, and it allows you to get away with a lot more than you would otherwise. Why don't we're going to switch screens to my screen, Margaret? If you want to go ahead and do that, I'm going to say share my screen real quick. We are here. I am here today at Claris headquarters, which is really kind of a funny story. I'm not really supposed to be here today. I was supposed to be here yesterday. So we are going to be doing the show. We're going to be talking about sorting, right? Because I know so much about the platform. I can always pick a topic, or mostly I let Jesse and people like yourselves, and I'm watching Discord over here. So we are here at Claris. It's kind of funny. So I went and talked to engineering a little bit today because I was here, and I'm like, hey, let's talk about sorting just briefly, make sure that I'm on the same page and nothing has changed in the last, say, 8 months, 6 to 8 months, and nothing has changed in that time period. So let's talk about that today. Along the way, if you have questions, please ask questions. I spent an hour and a half with Margaret last night realizing that she didn't understand a fundamental about relationships. And I suspect a bunch of you don't understand this either, because if she has a problem, you could always say the instructor sucks. Yes, I will take I suck as a person. Okay. But setting that aside, how do we increase your knowledge and make it better? And so we're going to try to figure out how to, every time that one of you, like Jesse or Margaret or Larry or someone has, they get stuck with something, I want to help you. And so I make notes, and that helps guide the live stream. So anyway, so today is on sorting. So let's talk about that. So first off, let me open up the database. I have a database that's open. This is called FMSP mock data. So I'm not sure if you guys can see this, guys and gals can see. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on it. And what this is, a copy of starting point, probably, I don't know, one from like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
2020 version, I think, actually.
20, okay, yeah. So it's not, I mean, I actually prefer this interface, although I'm getting used to kind of the new, when you have a new interface, everyone's like, oh, it's modern, it's professional, it's forward facing. And you're like, I was used to the old one. Thank you. But this one has a lot of records. And up here, you can see it's almost 800,000 records just in this one table. I'm going to go to File, Manage, Database. We're going to take a look at the tables right here. We're going to take a look at the records in the tables. We have 120,000 accounts. We have 1.8 million record communication notes, 800,000 contacts, 5.7 million invoice line items. That's 5.7, not dollars. That would be okay too, but 5.7 million records, 1.1 million of invoices, another 800,000 projects, and then whopping 481 staff, things like that. So anyway, so this is pretty beefy. So this is running. So I'm here at Claris headquarters, which is in Sunnyvale, California. And the database is running on Amazon. It's probably a West Coast server, what we call DBW13. It is a T2 large. I was going to ask Jacob about this, but just for giggles, if I say Amazon EC2 T2 dot large, what is a T2 large? It doesn't tell me T2 large, the instances. So T2 large. Okay, so it's got two CPUs on it, so it's pretty kind of underpowered. It's got 8 gigs of RAM. Okay, so it's pretty kind of pathetic on the server side of operations. On Linux, it's a little better. On Windows, it's less better. Anymore, we're trying to do the 416 config, if not bigger. We were on an extra large before, and I think my core RCC server, Jacob, pushed me up to a higher. But see, the prices on these also come down, so you can also kind of upgrade to bigger. So this is on a 2-core machine with 8 gigs of memory, okay? And to be clear, this would probably run with 10 users just fine. And so as I flip through records, you can see it brings these up, all this kind of stuff. So this is quite a few records in here. So the whole conversation is about sorting. And so as we have questions that we go along here on the sorting issue. So the issue with sorting is that almost no one has a database with 100 records in it, right? Because if you have 100 records or 1,000 records or 5,000 records and you sort, I'm going to say, very frankly, no one cares. Okay. It works fine. It's warp 9. It's just great. Okay. Sorting records comes in when you're sorting bigger numbers like 100,000, 20,000, 80,000, a million records, things like that. People expect things to be instantaneous, and they're not going to be when you're pushing that kind of data around, right? Now, it could be made faster, and that's what the conversation today is about. So what I'm going to do is, before I get into the weeds of this thing, I'm going to bring this up over here. This is a part of a video that we shot a while back. I am redoing this video to make it up to date. It's video 1009 in my pro course. And the short version is what when we talk about performance, and sorting is a conversation about performance. Conversations for intermediate senior developers, pretty straightforward. I move forward here. What makes data move? That is the operative thing when you're designing a database. Margaret, I'm talking to you as much as anyone else. What makes data move? And when I'm talking about data move, I'm talking about moving from the server to the client. Most of the time, it's not so much the client back to the server. It's mostly with quotes downhill from the server to you. And so that's one part of it. The other part of this thing called churn. And churn is when you have a bunch of data somehow in your RAM memory or on your hard drive, whatever, and it's processing. It's doing things with it. It's churning. It's like a washing machine, and it's agitating, and all the water's in there, and it's not adding more water. It's just churning what it already has: dirty clothes and dirty water and soap and everything else to make your clothes clean. If you ever watch that, we talk about the video. So browsing data makes data move. That's great. We've talked about this before. So in fact, Hansa had that really good video live stream that we did on a Friday, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was just epic. And he had this calculation that showed how many times as you manipulated and did things, you cause a calculation to fire. And you could absolutely see where FileMaker would load records and touch them and things like that. Well, the data movement down is an important concept. The other part of that concept is as data comes down, I'm going to bring this over here to the next graphic. We're talking about this. Table view doesn't particularly matter. It's basically the same idea. If I go forward here a little bit, we get into this idea of caching data. So the data in the old days in file, so understand back in the day, there was FileMaker Pro, and FileMaker Pro would do peer-to-peer sharing with up to 25 people. And then and there was another bet from Chris Krim about this, that, and the other thing. And he went off and created a copy of FileMaker server over the weekend in his garage again. That's how he made FileMaker go. He's now retired, but he's a little bit old. He's about 10 years older than I am. He's probably 60, 62. And so he built the first server. And so when server first came out, you put the FMP12 file in the server, and whatever you needed at the client, it would send to you. And it would almost save very little at the client level. There wouldn't be a lot of data saved on the local drive. However, the powers that be in the world, not just at Claris, but everywhere in the world, figured out that if you send someone the data, if they can retain the data you sent them and recycle it for future use, there's that recycling. Don't you want to recycle and be a good human? Yes, we're going to be a good human. We're going to cycle data. We're throwing all our aluminum cans in the trash to go to the dump, but we're going to recycle the data, right? So the persistent cache is the idea that cache is stored about the layout objects, about the schema, about things like that. It's saved on the drive of your computer. It's saved on the SSD, or if you have a iOS device, it's going to be flash memory. That's kind of the drive on that. And so the idea is that Claris is architected to save things smartly. Things that should not be saved are not saved locally. So if I go through here, I'm going to go forward into this graphic right here. So the idea is that as you need data, I'm going to down. I heard myself there. What is happening is that you get data that comes down, and it's saved that you bring down. It's saved locally and recycled if at all possible. If you are on a layout, for the first time, it's going to download all the objects from the layout. That's why starting point the first time you open it could take it 20 seconds to open, because especially if it's doing a lot of things, because it's caching a lot of data. The next time you open FileMaker, it might take 5 or 6 or 7 seconds, because all it does is checking the cache data like, hey, there's this layout. It's a contact data entry screen. Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. I already have that. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I already have it. Is the one I have up to date? Right? They put a little checksum for those of you programmers. A little checksum is like a little number that tells you quite simply if something has changed. If it's changed, it takes the local cache one down here, throws it away, and it downloads a fresh one. But if it's the same, It knows nothing has changed the layout because most of the time from day to day to day, when you use the database, layouts don't change unless you're actively working on a project. So it realizes nothing's changed. So I'm not going to download it all over again. So that happens at warp 9, like in like micro millisuper small seconds, right? And then of course,
Wait,
go ahead.
does that mean that when you edit a database live for a client and you change what the layout is, they have to re-download the entire layout again?
Typically, it'll flash, and unsavory things will happen, and it might kick them out of their record where they're editing the record or other things like that. That's why you have to be careful. You can work on a database that other people are using. You really should restrict your work to areas where they're not in it, if that makes sense, right? So on a layout that they're not using, things like that. Um, and so, yeah, if you change the layout, it's going to send down either the entire layout probably or the elements that have changed, I would hope, but I don't, it's not really a conversation about that so much because it gets this idea about sorting. And so the way the sorting works is kind of the same thing. So um, changing layouts frequently can be expensive, especially if the layout are being edited on the server. Um, because you're going to force download or at least a check every time you jump a layout. If it can reuse the layout, right, then it reuses it. Does that make sense? So when I look at people, yeah, talking about dinosaurs, I'm just checking for questions. Okay, so let's talk about sorting. This is the text in the video from 3 years ago. Okay, this is slightly out of date. So if you're looking at this, I put my hand over the thing so you can't see it anymore. Don't look at the text on the side of the screen. Wait, I can't walk. So in the old days, it would only have the sorting would only occur on the client. So if you had, so here we have a 800,000 records. The file says 500,000. If I do a sort, FileMaker server has to send all the records down for 500,000 records, not with the containers. Containers are handled separately, but all the fields, all the data. For if I go to contacts, there's 189 fields minus whatever containers in here, and any other unstored calculations is going to do those on the fly, right?
Wait, it sends all of them to the client?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorts suck. However, so this is conversation I have with Clay, and it was in the lobby of the hotel. I think it was a Marriott. Someone want to help me in Texas, south of Dallas, down there, but not as far as Austin, whatever's in there. Someone will.
San Antonio?
Thank you, San Antonio. So, and I'm going like, hey, and he goes, well, we've had this in the product to do server side sorts. What if the server could do it for you? Well, it's been in the product for like 10 or 15 years, but everyone's afraid to turn it on. It's like, yeah, we have this nuclear missile in the tube in the launch thing. We really don't want to shoot it. Well, that's kind of bad. But what if you had a a big candy bomb that would come out of there and rain Reese's Pieces on everyone? That would be okay. Don't kill them, just make them fat, right? So they had it in there and they were afraid to turn it on. And somewhere along the way, there was a conversation, they changed their mind. So what happens is this is the operative gnarly part of this, right? It's a little bit auto magical. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up, this is the FileMaker server. Okay, so this is the FileMaker server that's driving out. There's 112 files on this server. Okay, so it's quite a few. This is where we park copies. A starting point when they're like old legacy versions of starting point, including the current new one that we're working on will be in here, right? So there's probably version 2024 in here that we're working on. We're not shipping it yet, don't ask. It's coming. It's not done or you would have it already, right? But that's where we park our stuff. So, but there's only one user in here, so I'm not really affecting it. If you look at this, this is not percentage. That's not like 50%. That's 0.1% CPU being used. So, because I'm not doing anything. So this is 0.1% just to keep the lights on and for it to give me this graphic right here. Okay. If I start doing stuff and flipping around and going here, going here, going here, and going here, and going here, then every time I hit that spot, remember, it's going to download 25 records, typically in both directions. Well, it will do that on a list view. On the form view, it's not quite as much, but the idea is that every time you go to FileMaker, it tries to anticipate what you're going to need in terms of the data that you might likely browse. So if I'm on record 25962, it's probably already loaded from the server, the next one. So if I click this, it's pretty instantaneous. If I jump way up here, 1, 2, 3, that was pretty quick. 1, 2, 3. There's a little bit longer pause. See, there's a little bit more of a pregnant pause in there as opposed to one click, which is pretty instantaneous. So, and I've already been playing with this solution for a while. And so what ends up happening with this is real interesting, is that FileMaker goes, well, the user is going to do a sort. And is the server busy? If the server, and it's actually a fairly complicated algorithm, it has to do with the number of calls being made to the server. So if you go to logs over here and you look at, is it here? Let me see, me turn an interactive view. enable like a 4 logs. I can go over here to whatever the logs are, but then you can check the wherever the top call statistics enabled, right? So then top call statistics takes a lot of power out of it. But the idea is that you start getting these, it starts getting specific, like the number of cache hits you get, the number of calls per second you get. So if it's under a certain threshold, the server is not too busy. So loosely, it's somewhere between 15 and 30% max load. If you're below that threshold, what happens is that FileMaker server says, hey, I like you. You're a nice person. And I can make your life better if I do this sort for you. So shh, don't tell anyone. I'm going to do it for you. So it's like if you got a homework assignment and you give it to your best friend and they love you so much that they don't have anything to do, they're going to do your homework assignment for you and they give it back to you. But they're much smarter than you are. Say you're like kind of a, right, and you have a really smart, high IQ friend that gets perfect SAT scores. They're going to do the homework for you and give it back to you much faster. And that's what's going on here. It's a conversation about where the server's going to do it for you. It's going to do it for you much faster. Why is it faster? It's not because it's smarter. It's because all the data, all these millions of records are local for it. Remember the millions of records over here? They're through a network, through a wire, right? But this is all local on the hard drive.
Oh.
Okay. So now there's 1% power. Here's not 8% power. Then down here. So I must have done something that caused it to update or I was jumping around or whatever. So let's do this. I am going to what I'm going to do to start this off. I'm going to close this and I'm going to reset. I'm going to go to settings right here. I'm going to go to the cache dumpy function button. And it says reset dialogues positions. Where's the, oh, here's the delete cache settings. It'd really be cool if this was scripted. This would be great if this was a script so we could automate this, right? So I'm going to hit delete. It's going to delete all the local cache files. So now when I open it, it's going to be at slow speed. So I'm going to click over here or back to FileMaker. Sorry. I'm going to say open up mock data. Okay. And it's spinning. That's pretty quick. Not too bad. Okay. So if I come over here and look at it, you'll see probably a little bit of a spike where it's opening the file. Oh, that wasn't too bad. All right. So that sent us a little bit of data. It sent us the home screen. And what does it do on start? The startup script, right, Margaret? So,
Yep.
yep. So I'm going to go over here. A little bit of struggle. Now, if I jump, I'm going to jump magically halfway up. 1, 2, 3. That's pretty quick. And what it is, it's actually in the cache on the server. It's a little faster now. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to right click. Let's just start this off with 50,000 records. So I'm going to search for everyone with the letter A in their first name. 1, 2, 3. Now that's a server side activity, a search like that. It's absolutely server side because it's an index field. The server can do it and it's in the results back to user 67,000 records. So let's say that we do this. I recommend, as a general rule, not trying to have your users sort 67,000 records at any time because it's going to take too long. Now, you can have a faster computer with more money per month, like a T whatever, super quadruple X large. But at some point, it's just bad technique to be sorting that many records while the user's staring at it. The user is staring at it and watching the progress bar go by. It's a painful exercise. So I'm going to go ahead and right click right here on the address and then it's going to say sort. It doesn't matter, just sort it. So then what we get is really interesting. I get this sort over here. And what's happening is it's a little indeterminate progress bar. I think that's what comes up. Uh, that's what comes up when the server's doing it because the client doesn't know how long it's going to take to finish. If the client was doing this, doing the work itself, it would know beginning to end how long it's going to take. The server's doing it; it doesn't really know. It just knows it's doing it because the decision was made by the higher ups that the server was going to do it. So then it starts marching along. Yes.
Yes. So there's no way to control whether the server does the sort or not. It determines that by itself.
Yes, and 98% of the users out there, we will talk briefly about this. If someone highly objects to how this works, they can we'll talk remind me to talk about how to turn it off. It's a real hack, and I talked to Claris and they said don't tell people how to turn it off. If they want it turned off, then we get feedback, and then maybe we put up a checkbox over here in the interface for it, right? But generally, people like how it works. So right here, it peaked up to 18%. It took care of it for you. It was much faster for the FileMaker server to talk to its SSD, solid state memory, and to get the answer for you, and then beam the data back. Now, here's the rub. Every time you're over here interacting with this thing and you're downloading records, it's downloading the records before and after, 25 before, 25 after. It's as I'm clicking this, it's starting. If you imagine, I'm trying to. So this is the entire file size, and this thing is 15 gigs over here. Okay, it's about 15 gigs, but we're in contacts. So let's pretend this is the entire contacts table, and it's 4 gigs, okay, or something. As you start jumping around little slices, you're getting little bits of data. You don't have the whole thing because it's on the server, and downloading 4 gigs or 3 gigs is going to suck. So the whole goal is that you don't download it. But as you do things, or if the server is over, say 30%, it's 40% busy because other people are using it, or someone else is running a sort, maybe two people are running a sort, now the server is at 40 or 50%, and the server's like, I don't want to do anymore because it might become unresponsive. So the next person that sorts, what it does, it says, hey, I can't do it for you. I'm going to send you the data. So it starts dumping. It's like a dump. It's grabbing a buckets of water and over the side of the ship, and it's dumping it on the conveyor belt that's going to you. So it's dumping the water out, and it's on a conveyor belt through the internet down to your client. And then you sort it yourself. But as it dumps the data over the side of the ship to you, it comes down to you, and you keep the water. You keep the data. It's in your cache. And so what happens is so the logic actually is this. It's a little more convoluted, but I didn't say that this would be easy. I'm just giving you the truth. What was that line from the Matrix? I didn't say you'd like it. I just said that it was like the first the Matrix movie. It's like I didn't tell you you'd like it. Red pill or the blue pill. I'm just telling you. I'm just promised you the truth, right? The truth on this is that the client says, do I have all this data? I can do this work myself locally. Because if you have the data local to do the whole thing, that's by far the fastest. That's why the server does it, because the server would have it local, but would be faster than that would be if all the data was down at the client and the client did it. So the client goes, do I have all the data? Yes or no? If it has all the data that would be affected by, say, these 67,000 records here, then I'll run it locally. I won't bother the server. Okay. Then you have a progress bar that actually looks more normal, one end to the other. Okay. The client goes, hey, I don't have all the data. I need some data, right? And and this is where it gets a little squishy, but the point is the server goes, well, can I do it for you? I'm at less than 1% power. I can do it for you. I'll do it for you. So the server does it. Now the server could say, I'm already at 30%. I don't want to add it. Because remember, we just did one, it was 18%. So everyone does this. So you have 5 people do a sort at the same time. The server is going to start to really struggle because you're at 100%. So what it's trying to do is keep it at a healthy level. What we find out with FileMaker Server is that if it's below 60 or 70% or even 80%, it's generally pretty happy. But it appears to become unresponsive. It's not a linear progression it's at 1%, it feels fast, and then at 50%, it feels half as fast, and 90%, there's still 10% there. The perception from the user, and this came out from Nick Lightbody, Mark, if you remember him from Great Britain, UK. He would talk about doing performance testing, and as it got to 80, 90%, or even above 70%, the perception was that the whole thing came to a grinding halt, and you couldn't tell if it crashed or not. It's still processing, but because of the way FileMaker works, it becomes to the end user very non-responsive. So they don't want to get anywhere above about 60 or 70% because rapidly in there, it feels like it's struggling. Okay. So it's not like hey, it's all good to 80 or 90%, and then you just have to keep off that last 5% or something. You really need to keep off the last third realistically. Okay. So that's an important concept. So that's why there's the threshold for it not the FileMaker server not volunteering to do your sort for you is so low because it wants to keep it off that. But it can do a couple, and maybe those are the people in the company, and it goes couple, it does them for you, and it does them happily. It keeps someone happy, and they like FileMaker, helps the platform be more successful. They sell more products. So that's where this comes in. So first is the data local? Yes or no? Okay. 2, server says, can I do it? If that's a backup plan, there's actually 3 or 4 plans here. So can it do it locally? The cache? No, can't do it locally because it's not here. 2, server, can you do it for me? Yes or no? Server says, no, it's over 30%. Then the third plan, so plan A, B, and C, we're on plan C, is the server takes the buckets of data and dumps it over the side of the ship to you. And then as it comes down to the internet, however many hundreds of megabytes, you collect it, you cache it, and then you run the sort. Now, if you do the sort again, the same three criteria fire up. Is the data local? Oh, yes, it is. Run with plan A. You've already paid the penalty. You've already paid the penalty. You're now going to derive the benefit from that moving forward. That's why when I started this up, I came over here and I said, I went to settings, which is preferences. You come over here, you dump this. This dumps all your hard-earned internet work that you've done where you've cached it locally. Okay. But it gives you more of a, in terms of performance and conversations, it gives you more of a starting from fresh, right? Makes sense? Questions? This is not beginner stuff, Ruben. No, give me a break, Ruben. It's absolutely beginner stuff. So let's evaluate from Margaret. Margaret, what do you think this is or not is? What's your evaluation of this?
Uh, I mean, I think it's not a complicated conversation. In terms of like beginner, you haven't told me where to find sorting. Like, where would I
Oh,
even go sort something?
okay. Okay, back up. So big button at the top of the screen.
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
Done.
Is that the
Okay. So
only
for
place
all
you
of
can
you who are
sort?
drooling, who have no thought, that's all.
Okay.
That's all there is. Here's the deal with this. There's no controls for the rest of this anywhere. It's all automatic, except that there is a super secret Mickey Mouse handshake, double secret probation, secret handshake you can do to the FileMaker server that will disable the server trying to do it for you. Because remember, the default behavior was always, can I do it locally? And if I can't do it locally, go get me the data I need so I can do it locally. So that was option A and C. B in there was where the server would do it for you and just send the results to you. Okay. Makes sense.
Yes. That makes sense.
So we
Uh,
can turn that off to a super secret handshake. I talked to Claris Engineering about it. They said, yeah, it's still in there, but almost no one does it because it pretty much consistently behaves. But the short version of this is fairly automatic, but the fundamental is to, if you're a beginner, let's back up. So if you're in this conversation about where you're at the progression of learning, if I come over here with this, I go back over here to the beginning of this, right? So there's the beginning person over here. These are the things you need to think about as you become an intermediate developer, right? Not doing things that will cause a progress bar where people stare at the screen, right? We talk about PSOS doing a lot of this stuff for you. This is kind of PSOS, except it's fully automated PSOS, right? So I'm
yes.
going to run a sort, have the server do it for me. I'm going to send a command to the server to sort on the server. This is PSOS for that. It is, it's all automated so you don't see it. Does that make sense? But I demonstrate it, right? If I come
Yes.
over here and I do it one more time just so people can see it. So the FileMaker server is kind of rolling along here, being all cool. Not even up 1% usage. I'm going to go to Command J. I'm going to tell it to sort all 800,000 records. Right click and sort descending. So now it's going to start doing this, and we'll start to see telemetry pop up here. And so once again, we see this inconclusive progress bar that's popped up here, which means the server has volunteered to help us with our project. The smart kid is helping, your smart friend is helping you with your homework. And now the
There we
performance
now,
goes.
now it's doing its stuff.
Now it's doing
Uh,
its stuff. So this is plan
so
B.
what happens when you add new records into a existing sort? So like you've sorted it and then you're adding records. Does it
FileMaker,
resort it
so
every time?
plan A is that the client Go or Pro, we're not talking about WebDirect because remember, WebDirect is all on the server anyway, right? So it's always going to be on the server, right? So just keep that in mind. Um, so so if the client says, "Can I do it locally?" and the system goes, "Well, you can do it locally, except that you're missing." You're trying to do a sort on an 800,000 records, but you're missing 5,433. Then the client's going to try to have a conversation with the server to get those 5,433, or it's going to tell the server to do it for you. There is it's some complexity in there where it tries to decide the best way forward for you. It's automatic. But if it can get it, it's going to take the fastest path forward. So if all it is sending you a little bit of data, then you could do it yourself. That will be the way it does it. It really doesn't want to do it for you over here. Because look at this. Look at right now, if we had 8 or 10 people on here and they weren't doing very much, then another person comes over and says, I want to do a sort. Guaranteed number 2 and 3 and 4 that want to do sorts, the server is just going to dump the data over to the into the internet to them so they have it locally. They could do it themselves. It'll take them about 7 or 8 times as long to do the sort. This one will be done here probably momentarily. So that is this thing that goes on. So if FileMaker is missing some data over here, it's not really refreshing. If I'm missing, say, 5,000 records over here, that might be fastest. Just to give me the 5,000 I'm missing. Now I have a complete data set. Now let me do the sort because it doesn't bother the server. See that when the server dumps stuff over to the internet to you, it's pushing it through the network traffic. The CPU isn't doing very much, right? We come over here, you can say like, well, how busy is the network, right? Well, the network wasn't very busy. And then it shows me bytes per second. I hate bytes per second. That's the most useless metric on the planet, right? But that's bytes per second. So you want at least kbytes per second as a metric at the minimum. But this is like saying, yeah, I don't even know. It's like how far for me to drive from here to Santa Clara? Oh, it's 8,322 steps of walking. Okay, that's really a useful metric. A useful metric is either megabytes, don't do bits, bytes, bytes. Because 50 megabyte file, we know what that is. 120 megabyte PDF, we know what that is. We viscerally understand as developers what that is, how big it is. Okay. So then here, so now notice there wasn't going on. The server was doing the sort. Now the server's going, hey, I finished the results. Let me dump them to you. So here it just spiked. The CPU was up here, and then the CPU is largely done. So network busyness and CPU business are two different things. They're not glued together. The CPU could be busy talking to the hard drive, and it's just telling the client, hey, by the way, just stand by. I'm not sending you data, just stand by. I'm working on it. It's like bothering your friend. Hey, when's my homework going to be done? When's my homework going to be done? Right? And the server's like, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So you get the little progress bar that's indeterminate, right? If the server's doing it, it will be a progress bar that has a length on it.
What about automatic sorts? Because doesn't CMS sort automatically by date? Or is that something different that I'm misunderstanding as a sort?
So here's the deal with sorts. This is a great conversation with sorts. Someone says, like yours, like, hey, I've got a CMS database and it sorts automatically. I mean, it does it automatically. Well, you're probably not sorting more than 50, 80, 100 records. That's fast. But then someone says, well, if it's so fast that it just does it, then you wouldn't notice it. But if you notice it, then you have a much bigger data set and you notice the slowdown. It's one of those things that I always tell people, be thoughtful about the sorting. And they're like, well, I want to sort 20 records. I said, it's never going to be an issue sorting 20 records. Okay. I want to sort 100 records. And someone says, well, if I have 200 records, I really don't need to see them sorted because that'll be kind of a mess. I just need the order. Because remember, FileMaker will default to the order they're entered in the system. If you unsort everything, the data that's in here, these 797,000 records, that if you unsort them, if I go sort, I do a sort command, sort, and I say unsort, now they're unsorted. They're now in the order they were created. And it's like glued in. It's like super glue. You can kind of sort them and temporarily jump past that, right? And show it in a different order. But fundamentally, in its native state, it's native, no lipstick. It rolled out of bed in the morning. It looks the way it is, hair up in the air. Right, I got to get a haircut. It's getting really long. Crazed look on your face like a wild beaver that got hung over. Right, right. That's its native state is the order the records were created. Even with a portal, same thing. So then, anytime you sort it, you're putting lipstick on a pig. The next question goes. Someone's going to ask the question: how do I change the permanent sort order? Not easily. You have to dump all the data out of FileMaker, sort it somewhere else, then re-import it to FileMaker.
Oh, that's clever. Not easy, but well, I mean, I didn't even think you could change the natural sort order. I guess you're not.
You
You're
have
just
to
taking
delete all the data, munge it into an order you like, and then bring it back. That's not resorting it. That's nuking the. Okay, let me help you with that. That's a grenade. Throw the grenade at database, blow it up, and then bring it all back in. That's not resorting. That's violence.
I have a question. Are fines considered sorts, or
they work? The interaction between FileMaker server and the client used to be that fines were the only thing that really the server really do for you. But
Hmm.
now sorts do it, and also sub summaries will be done too that way. I believe that's the case. I've had a so there's a couple of videos I have to update. But yeah, so when you do a find, the client goes, "Hey, server, I got to do a find. Can you help me?" Now here's the rub. If the client has a bunch of uh, data that's shall we say, the server can't know. Like, say you have a calculation that says do a find, and part of that calculation somehow is you reference your screen size or something, something that the server, like a get function, the server won't know. Like the server knows a lot about you. It's like big government. Yes, right, and we know all about your bad habits, but it doesn't know the size of your window. Like if I go like this, FileMaker server doesn't know that's big. FileMaker server probably knows how many windows I have open. Probably,
Uh, huh.
probably. But it doesn't know other things, right? Like, for example, if I want to commit into a record and I'm editing, it doesn't know what I've typed. And if I jump to another record, another field, and I'm still editing, right?
That's
I
not
haven't
still not a
committed the
commit.
record. All it knows is I've locked a record. So some things the server doesn't know. It's like the other day we saw the art news article that your car, if you have internet service in your car, some of the automotive manufacturers are selling your driving behavior back to insurance companies so they can adjust your rates based upon how you drive. Oops. So how much server knows about you? Because it's watching, but some things it doesn't know. So if you do a find on something it doesn't know, the find has to happen locally on the client, right? Does that make sense? So the server can't help you. That's a fundamental. Yes.
Yes, that makes sense. I just got distracted by people asking questions.
I'm going to go to invoices. I'm going to do a search over here for contact. So I'm going to do a find. There's 1.8 million records in here. Okay. If I type key over here, R, okay.
Yes.
Now I hit the return key. I haven't done it yet.
Yes.
It's going to send to the server, and you'll see the spike where the server is going to do the shenanigans for me. Let's go back to CPU. Pretty light's under 1%. Okay. Pretty light. Let's see how long it takes. It's pretty damn fast because the way searches work with some of the algorithms are pretty quick. So 1, 2, 3, hit it. That was instantly fast, and it
Yeah.
returned. And then it told us what the found set was. Okay, and it downloaded the 25 records behind or in front of me, right? That kind of thing. So it's downloading just the records in my proximity, my friend, my. So as I click, it's pretty quick. Okay,
Huh.
so then if I come back over here, it updates. It's not even showing it. That was that fast. That was weird. Should show it. Wow. We try. And then another request with TR, and then another
Oh,
request.
you're stacking requests?
I'm making it harder, trying to make the server actually like earn its keep. Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. See this is where it gets cool because FileMaker back in the old days, this would cause it to and then fall over, right? Like 20
Okay.
minutes. Now it does millions and millions and millions of records with no problem.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
I guess because you would do finds way more often than you do sorts, so that would
Well,
be
and it's
more.
just the mechanics of it, Margaret. It's not sending all the data because yeah, it's the algorithm for a find, and yeah, it has to do with indexing and how indexing works. It's actually a faster process to do a find than it is to actually reorder them. Because remember, it's keeping all the records and reorder them in a sort, and a find is just eliminating everything except for
Oh,
the
so it's just like tossing thing out the window instead of
yeah, it's it's
organizing the
it's it's
Beanie
it's
Babies.
it's doing a search, and the algorithm is much more efficient for that than a sort. 'Cause remember, sorts it's keeping everything; it's just reordering them, right? Oh, this one's above this one. Oh, this one's above this one. I have a graphic for that if anyone cares how that kind
That
of
would
works.
be a cool graphic to see. I do have
Want to
two
see
questions
that?
for
All
you.
right, let me go to the Deadbird database, see if I can find it.
I have questions for you
Hmm.
though.
You have questions? All right, let's go ahead and give me questions. I'm good with that. Go ahead.
Okay, from Ed, if I understand that in reality the default sort is by record ID? Question mark, question mark?
It probably
Is
sends that back to you if it's going to tell you what records are in the found set, right? I'm sure it's sending you the record ID for that. I mean, it's you're asking how it works under the hood, which is actually technically like exactly what string of data is being sent back and forth. It's not nothing you can interact with. We'll get
Media
there eventually.
Sandbox. I've
Yes.
just tuned in late. Has never show the native sort dialog been mentioned yet? It reveals all the relationships and fields. What?
The native sort dialog. So if we go to records and we go to sort, once again, this is not so much about this. It's about this is just a dialogue. I mean, okay, to be clear, I never use this because it's always in scripts. I do it in scripting, right? So this is all the developers here are going to be. Yeah, Media Sandbox is a developer. He does this in scripting. Does it in scripting. So yeah, yeah, I mean this I don't know what to tell you. Listen, sorting at a very basic rudimentary level is sorting. There's nothing fancy schmancy about it. Whoa, you can sort this way. You can sort ascending. You can sort descending. None of that is override for the language. I don't speak other languages, so for me, that's not a thing. And do reordering based subsummary. The conversation is really about when to sort, when not to sort, and if you start making ginormous requests of sorting from FileMaker, how it's going to handle your request in terms of the client handling this. I would recommend going back to the beginning of the live stream and catching that. But the FileMaker server is going to help you if possible, right? And under what criteria it will do that, it's kind of a complicated little sequence of events. There's 3 or 4 different possible sequence of events of what it'll do to get the sort for you done. You can select things up here, right? But once again, I would argue that what you need to do for most of your users, if you have a found set, so here's the deal. You're always going to do the found set first. And then you want to have your users interact with the found set. Like if I actually had 1.1 million records in here, during the startup script, I would have it do a sort or find the records that were created in the last month or something, right? I would not run around and try to display 1.5 million records or 2 million records in the found set. That's where you can run into performance problems. It's not so much you can't display it, but if you're running around trying to flip found sets and you've got millions and millions of records, that kind of shenanigans, it's unnecessary, right? Your end users are never going to want to look at a list view of 1 million records ever. If they do, then that needs to be a scripted process you would run overnight. You would run it on the robot, you run a PSOS, although I wouldn't run anything on the server that's going to take absolutely no longer than an hour. And more likely it needs to be shorter than that because you don't want that process to crash, fall over. Then you've got to resuscitate a down process on a server. Because if you crash PSOS, then it's crash for everyone. Okay. And then you have to do a server restart, which means kicking everyone out of the database to start the restart. So I try not to crash PSOS, which means like Nick Hunter will run a PSOS that runs for an hour. Okay. I really disagree with that process because I'm the kind of guy that I want that server. If a client crashes, that's always infinitely more preferable than the server crashing. Servers handle clients crashing. It's expected, right? But I try not to overtax a server. So once again, we're talking about PSOS and other things like that. But the point is that you want to minimize the found set. So in an ideal world, you go, show me all the invoices that were created or something like that. Show me some sort of smaller, what it's doing right now. Smaller found set. Is it running a backup? No, it's spinning. I don't know why. Once again, and if I crash, that's okay. At the client level, I don't want the server to crash. Come back over here to the server. Okay, something just happened because the server is off to the races. I wonder if it's doing a
Well,
yeah.
did you hit sort? We had a sort window open. Did you ask it to do?
I don't think so. Maybe I did. I'm talking and doing 2 things at once. So Media Sandbox, Dave Angel, after 19 or so, suppose a performance server FileMaker depends on the server users, but I didn't see anything change repeatedly. Yeah. So what happened? This was added sometime in 19. And then another release after that, like 19.4, 19.5, 19.6, they had the sub summaries on the server as well. So these have all been upgrades in 19, right? I was talking to Claris today. I'm at Claris headquarters right now. And we were discussing how 19 was spread over like multiple years and how that confused people. And we have people who think that they're on FileMaker 19, they're up to date, and they've got software that's got security holes in it that's 3 or 4 years old. Right? That's not good. So really important that you think about that. Yeah. So change so all right. So yeah, questions along the way. I don't know why it is doing what it's doing. Okay, it stopped again.
It looks like it's before.
It's back. Oh, that right there is a
What
value
did?
subtype. See the one below with the little
Yeah.
down chevron? Okay, that was a value list that popped up. You don't want a value list with 1 million records in it. Let's start with that. Remember, Margaret, remember yesterday you had a value list that you could have it driven by the value of a field, right?
Yes.
What if there in that other table is a million records? Are you going to have a million possible radio buttons?
Oh, that'd be bad. That would be
Right.
unfortunate.
Right.
Yes.
So all these considerations come in. The things that you do as a beginning developer, you don't want to do as an intermediate to senior level developer because you're gonna cause. So it's still the
Okay, so I think you tried to find on a value list and it got mad because there's too
okay, I'm
many.
gonna go to what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just do R here. So this was the idea. So that's 118,000. So if I was gonna do this, I'd do Command R refine. I would say R I. Okay. So now you're down to 17.
Oh, that's a drop-down list of all the contacts. So just try to load a million values in the.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
that's
Okay.
another one of those like, hey, this is not a good design moment. So having a pop-up with that many people in there. So people say, well, how would you handle that? Okay. So what you do is if you want to do a pop-up, you pop another window, either card style, and it's a list view. Margaret, we talked about like portals. A list view
Yeah.
is always faster than a portal. So what you would do is you would simulate something like this. You'd pop a new window, you go to contacts, you'd hide the status area at the top, you'd have a list view, and then I didn't tell it to do that. List view. Okay, up here. Thank you. And then you'd have it pop into this area like this. You'd hide the status area at the top. You would get rid of this stuff up here, and you'd have like a search field up here where you could type and hit a return. It would do a search and then narrow it down for you. And that's how you want to drive. So pop-up menus are, if you have more than 50 or 80, 100 values of pop-up menu, it'll be too slow. Pop-up list is what you just saw. Obviously, doesn't work with 1.1 million records or whatever it was doing. Oh, no, contacts, 800,000 records. Doesn't matter. We're talking ginormous. So you manage it this way. This is how you have high speed software. So you don't ask it to, because remember searches, right? Remember how fast searches were. Search was instantaneous. So you don't want to do sorting and stuff. You want, so every time, if you had a field up here where you said, oh, find me, you click up here and you say, find me Richard or Ruben, right? Type RUB, whatever, right? Hit return. Fine, instantaneous. Then it gives you a list. Instantaneous. Click one. That's instantaneous. Having it spawn a list of million records way slow. Because really sorting is about performance, right? At the end of the day, sorting is really basic, right? You can sort. There's orders of sorting. I don't. It's a very basic concept. Everyone on the planet sorts stuff. Please sort high to low. Okay. There's nothing fancy in FileMaker about that. The issues come in is that because FileMaker is such an easy system to get into and use, then people put a lot of data in it and then they keep doing the old technique, which is asking it to sort a million records.
Let's do Ken's first. You talked about loading 25 records plus or minus. So if you're in a list view and you start moving through the list, does it keep 25 on either
Yeah.
side, or does it
Try
wait
that.
until you get to the
That's a
end of
great
the list and
performance
load the
question.
next 25?
So if I came, so say it, so let's try this again. So I'm going to be, let's go to detail view. I'm going to find all the KRs or whatever. Okay. 3,000 records. Now, when I did that right now, I think it loaded this record, and they keep futzing with this. So once again, it's not so much the exact numbers, just understand the concepts going on. It's loaded the next X number once. It'll be less than 50. Okay. If I got a list view right here, for sure it's going to load at least the next 25. So it loaded the next 25. So one, two, three. These are all in memory. Obviously, they're on screen, so they had to be loaded. My guess is that it figured out how far down the screen it would be, and then it loaded probably another 20 or 25 more than that. If I start, I'm going to use the down arrow button. So I start loading, and it's going pretty good, pretty good. Now I'm holding down. You can't see it. I'm holding my finger down on the down key, and it's scrolling. Okay, and what's happening is it's loading like 25 at a time. That's pretty good internet in here at Apple. Can't imagine why Apple computer would have a pretty good internet connection because the server's on Amazon, right? And so it's sending me it blocks a 25 down, the next 25 in front. Now, if you get on a bad internet connection, you'll see it go down really fast, and then you'll say chunk, 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 and then it'll go, and then chunk, chunk. Because the chunking is when it's kind of like, I need the next 25. I'm waiting for it. It's not here yet. What do we do? Make sense? Next
Yeah.
question, Margaret.
Uh,
That was
can't
pretty quick.
you can't you unclick the enter and find mode button to the inspector? Basically he's
Rephrase.
asking if you can escape, if can you escape a find mode without finding anything?
FileMaker's not really good at aborting like that. I know that's been a point of contention over the years. Like you start a find going, like you do an unindexed find. Like if we go to invoices, I might have to, this might crash it if I do this, right? So if I do a find and I go, show me all the invoices that are over $10,000, that depending on the design of this system, that data should be a cache field that updates. It should be a number field. If it was good design, then you'd have a little update up here. I
Hmm.
don't think this is that. I think this is a calc field, an unindexed calc field. And when I
Oh.
return,
Did you hit return? Oh.
oh, it was
Oh,
pretty quick. Okay, hang on.
that was nice. That was slick.
Oh, that was buttery smooth, baby. Buttery. All right, so let me go to layout mode real quick. Buttery. Let's take a look at what that field was.
It's got a
Order
script
total.
trigger on it.
Order total price. Order total price. Order total price. Order total cached. See that? In order total, those are both number fields. So what happens is it gets the total from somewhere like up here, and then it sets it in there. That's why let's be quick. Yeah, yeah. That's why you listen to me and you learn from other FileMaker people who know what they're doing. This is how you build the solution correctly. I was kind of hoping I'd screwed it up. So not being serious because then it demonstrates the wrong way of doing it. But in the standard version of starting point, we do it correct. We do it with the performance in here. It's not as intuitive, right? Because you're like, hey, as a basic user, once again, I talked about this yesterday or the day before, where like I was talking about like calculations where you say if Richard,
Hmm.
if Richard, okay. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to train people that if Richard is sleepy, that makes sense. Is Richard makes no sense, but they write code like this. And then someone promptly said, well, that's the way we do it because that's professional. And it's a waste of the other way, except when you're training. So in training, we're trying to teach people this is a total. So you're like, the total would be all these numbers total together. So write a calculation, total these numbers all together. These are all related data. So they're going to pop out a related value. Okay. That's fine on one layout. If you ask it to summarize how many of them are above 1.1 million invoices and there's 790,000 above that, there's no, because to do it in that design method, remember that's an on-screen calculation, only calculates at the time, right? Like this is such an important concept here. So if I say order, or where's the calculation, total, summary? Oh, hey, they're all called summary. Here we go. Summary, summary invoice, summary, running with restart. Not sure what that is. No, where's the total? Total subsummary.
This running with restart means that it only runs once when you open FileMaker.
Total, grand total of summary. It actually should be a calculation field, is the total for this because summaries are against multiple records. A calculation field is going to give you the total against the related records, which is what we need. So hang on one second. Let me see if I can find it. Calculation. Let me just go by type. There we go. Calculations. I need a calculation that has a sum function, probably a SUM sum function. I could probably create a new one for everyone if we wanted to. Do we see a sum SU?
Unstored calculation, month summary sales.
Yeah. So the way
Do you
you
want to try to search on that?
let me just do test. I'm going to write test calc. I'm going to write this right now, and then it's probably going to lose its mind. I'm going to say create a calculation. So this is the way we train it. Okay. When you're a brand new person, calculation. I want to see all the totals of all the line items for this invoice. So it's a total invoice total. Okay. You're like, well, I need a sum function. Trust me on this sum function. Find me all the related off of invoices, all the line items. So we need invoices to count, line item, invoice right here. Then I need the extended price total, extended price. There we go. Hit OK. It's going to be a number field or say storage options. It has to not store this is the thing. It doesn't store the total. It only calculates it when you show it on screen or when you need it somewhere else. Okay. So there it is. Okay, hit OK. Yeah, here we go. This is the road to hell's paved with moments like this. Very dangerous.
I mean, it's right there. Technically, the field automatically appeared in the layout, but
Oh, did it? Oh, okay. Well, I was just trying to put it over here. Okay, let me get rid of this. Put this over here. Okay. Okay, great. We have that over there. I could format it as money, not essential, but I come down here and say formatting as currency, right? Whatever. Right. Browse one. Okay. So now it gives me the number. There's no comma in there. Okay. Now. Would you like to see, do the search? This is the way we would have taught people to build a database. Then you say, well, I want to search for everything that's bigger than 4,999.
it's a very small little blue thing. I can't hear a single
We're
word
going to
you're saying.
die. We're going to die.
Oh,
It's so slow. This is what beginners do. That's why this show is, I assume that you can sort. It's not so much like what is sorting. There's the dialogue. If Media Sandbox knows how to sort, he's trolling me if he's asking how to sort. Okay. So it's a troll. Don't troll me, Media Sandbox. So the issue is that sorting is simple. A to Z, unless you didn't pass kindergarten, you flunked out of kindergarten. Okay. Or whatever they have overseas in other countries. Preschool. Super preschool. So then you build a solution as a beginner. And then you keep building and building, and then you get more. And then you run into shit like this. Your boss calls you in the office. Richard Crowd to come in here. Are you aware that you built the database for us? It's this slow. We're like, sir, no, sir. Okay. Fix it right away. Yes, sir, sir. So I have to go find someone to fix it or learn. Okay. That's what this is about. That's learning how to do things correctly. Notice that starting point, it went really fast. With this version of starting point, it was cached. So as we do the total and the invoice is complete, it runs a quick script trigger, and it puts the total in a indexed field that's saved. Okay. An index field. So then you have it do a sort or a find command, not sort, a find command on bigger than that number. And it's easy to do because it's already saved. For this thing to do this, it has to process every line item and total it up. Millions of line items will be totaled up. This will not finish during the show, probably. In fact, we're over. The show's over. So it
that's
will take an
wild.
hour. This is dead. And now, how busy is the server on this? I think the server might be doing it by that progress bar. If we go back to the server, let's take a look at the server. Yeah, the server shit.
Oh, it's at
The
90%.
server, the server's trying to do it for us. Oh yeah, one person with a bad design can bring a server to its ground, and other people come in. It's got enough horsepower over here to keep people happy. Up here, it would have been felt unresponsive to other people. So this is why good design matters. It tremendously matters.
What happens if you want to, I guess, search on containers of what Ken is saying? Adding containers to the list
David
view,
Ingram's
that
got a
slows it
question.
down too.
Yeah, David's got a question. He suggests sorting in a different layout with fewer fields. It doesn't really work that way. When you download the data for a sort, you're getting all the fields for that record minus the containers.
Oh, so even if the fields aren't on the layout, it'll still
Yeah,
send.
yeah, it sends them
Oh,
down to you. It sends them down. That's why if you have a really fat table, some people say, well, take your table and break it down in two or three tables. So that way you're interacting with just a subset of fields and it limits this behavior.
so
Yeah,
you'd have to make a same different table occurrences
this
for
is
the
what I
same
was
table.
expecting when I did the demo, and then it worked really fast. I'm like, wow, either I suck as a teacher or this copy of starting point had these upgrades in it. And the upgrades are not hard to understand, but we have to cache. That's why we have some fields called cache totals, and we keep those on the screen. So this way it's when you use starting point and it scales and you grow it, I'm trying to keep you out of trouble from having problems. Okay. And along the way, if you want to learn, that's great. But this is super valuable, right? I hope.
No, this is a good conversation because, well, yeah, the only sort I really interact with is on
All right,
CMS.
so we need to
CMS
go
has
back and
maybe
cover caching at the on Pro or anywhere where you have line items and you're totaling,
caching
caching
in general.
invoices, making invoices that don't go slow. That's
Okay, well,
really it's
in
a
that case, watch me add that to CMS Live.
you're gonna do that
Uh,
live.
making for the
Layout
first
with
of it,
50 fields will sort the same speed as 4 fields. Yeah, basically, David, that's your implication. That is a correct statement.
making invoices in FileMaker.
Other than it just reading the 50 blocks of data off the hard drive and munging them around in memory, the speed will be the same. So, I mean, and then obviously it's going to send the 50. I mean, okay, so you have a table with 4 fields versus 500 fields. 4 will go faster only from the standpoint of the girth units, right? We have girth units, too much girth, too much Reese's peanut butter cups or something, right? Right, you have girth units. If the bigger the girth is, the slower it's going to go in general. But FileMaker is going to process both the same. It only doesn't shoot the data down to you if it's a container. It only sends containers if it's on screen or you're running a script that calls that container, like you say, is this container empty or some sort of calc on the script. Then this wherever's running the script is going to have to get the container to see if it's and it downloads it. It's like, okay, well that was a 5 gigabyte, 5 megabyte container. So that's not necessarily the best process either. They just think about that stuff.
Well, wait, hold on, because the different table stuff.
It's still,
It's running sorts off of the base table, right? So it doesn't matter how many different table occurrences you have.
oh, I'm sure
Always gonna
dipping through relationships is not going to make your life any easier. Okay.
There's
Ever.
no way to limit the amount of fields it's running, is what I'm saying. Or control how many fields it's running unless you have two totally different base tables.
If you have a find and you're going to have like this process, like you go to a customer and they say, build this database for us. And you figure out that they've got this proclivity to doing the certain searches and certain sorts. You want to pre-cache that. There's methods you can make to make this go faster, there's a whole conversation we can have on performance if you want. We could do a whole series on performance.
That
It's
might
not
be
pro
good.
course, right? So
I have empty days and
well, then we
incomplete
can cover
internal
that. But
information.
it's but this is this kind of stuff, right? And we can, but it's basics. It's not really even the high end, deep end stuff. It's just basics of making, pitching to FileMaker strengths, not pitching to its weaknesses. When you're brand new and you're beginner, you just want to work and you get to work. And then somewhere between that point and today, you've added a million records, and then like this happens. And then and this does, right? It's like I'm going to go grocery shopping for all the old people in my neighborhood. Okay, I'm going to go. They gave me the money. It's not a money thing. I'm going to take my car, go grocery shop for all the people, and you keep helping people, help people. And then suddenly, all the groceries that they want don't fit in your car. Well, your heart was in the right spot, right? Your car's not big enough. You have to get a bigger car. That's this conversation. Your heart's in the right spot. You did the right thing. FileMaker's a great platform. Is it Ford's or Toyota's fault that you have a Highlander, an SUV, and it doesn't have enough as a semi truck that you need? You need a Mack semi truck to get all the groceries. I'm being serious. Is it
No,
Toyota's fault? Well, then you need to figure out at what point you outgrow that design of Toyota, because Toyota will make a big semi truck for you. That's FileMaker. Design the vehicle to get bigger. And that's what we do in performance training.
that makes sense. All right,
All right,
I
so
think we're
everyone's
good.
down to drink beer and they're out of here. So you folks are awesome. I greatly appreciate it. If you have questions like this, please ask, because Margaret's asking questions and she's having an unusually high influence on what you're saying. But if you like these topics, you can tell where she's going, right? So, because she's dangerous. She's much smarter than I am, and I mean that seriously. But it's like, you can the youth can always get past the old guys, except the old guys have more experience and they're cunning and they know how to cheat better.
Yeah,
That's how,
they wouldn't think I was smarter than you if they saw our last night conversation. That was like the ultimate head wall beating. Is what that was.
well, you figure out what base table is as opposed to table occurrence, but what that really, really, really means. If people don't really understand it, then we need to help them. So, okay,
Yes.
we'll
Have a
help
good one,
you at
everybody.
Claris. Have a good one, everyone.
All right, everyone. Have a good one. Goodbye.